Business Saturday.
Welcome to Small Business Saturdays video series with your host and my husband.
And my dad, Aaron Montgomery.
Join the conversation.
Let's talk some business.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome into Small Business Saturdays. My name is Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me over at oursuccessgroup.com. So today we're going to talk about something I'm very passionate about. So I guess that's more of a warning, right? It's a warning to be prepared for some kind of soapbox moments and, maybe a lot of excitement, talking really fast at times. So just bear with me. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm passionate about this idea of mastering masterminding. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today. And I'm also going to tell you there's probably very little chance that this is a short one today. So buckle up, so to speak. I am so bullish, I guess would be a good way to say it, on the power of masterminding and really doing it in a very correct and true way. And so I really want to share this with folks. I appreciate you guys checking in here this morning and saying hello. And for those of you that are catching the live version, again, thank you so much for being here. Now, I also understand, I'm seeing who's in the comments here. Good morning to Chuck, and good morning to Tanya, and good morning to Michelle. So thank you guys for tuning in. I know, especially in Tanya's case, I'm going to be preaching to the choir here. So, but I think there's still be lots of good takeaways and kind of figure out how this works and plays along. Good morning here to our Facebook user. So let me just dive right in, because again, like I said, I don't see this being short, and definitely want to get your guys' comments and feedback, and those of you that are tuned into the live version here, I want to hear from you, but I also want to make sure that I share all of this and get you back into your Saturdays in a somewhat reasonable time frame here. So now I guess kind of a little bit of history is I have been involved in numerous masterminds, from starting them to being part of one. I'm still actively a part of one myself. I've actually led several successful programs for New York Times bestselling author Jack Canfield. He's got a program called Momentum Mastermind, and I was a lead in that. In fact, I still get asked to do that. I just haven't had the time to commit to that, but I was a lead in that Momentum Mastermind program several times, and it's a big deal. It's a big responsibility, and in fact, I even had the pleasure of having Jack in breakout rooms with me as I was leading, and in fact, he showed up several times. At first, I was like, "Oh no, does he think I'm doing it wrong?" But later, I found out he was just really excited and gave me rave reviews and was. Wanted to see that passion that I had for masterminding. And so I'm also really fortunate to be able to foster the Masters of Success program that we run at our success group. It's our hosted mastermind groups. In fact, Tanya, as I mentioned, is part of that group. So that's kind of my mastermind world, right? Like I said, I just am so bullish. I'm so excited about what I see happening for myself and others when they get into a true mastermind program. So we're going to really kind of start off there here in just a little bit, kind of debunking the myths, or maybe kind of exposing the pitfalls of what many, and for podcast listeners, I'm using air quotes, mastermind programs I've seen, right? Even in our wonderful niche industry, the sexy mastermind word has been thrown around quite a bit, and in my opinion, way too much. But again, I'm this is something where I'm maybe a bit of a mastermind snob, I guess we could even call it, right? And that's okay, right? The things that you're passionate about, you get to be a snob about that, and so that's okay. Things you guys are passionate about, you're okay to be a snob about that. But so I want to do that. I want to start off kind of debunking those myths, or kind of talking about what masterminds are not. And then I'm going to share the key pillars and the things that you want to look for in programs, and really even give you the framework. So you're going to have enough to really kind of participate on your own. I'm going to certainly discuss the importance of having a program facilitated by somebody with training to facilitate groups, right? I learned those lessons along the way, kind of sometimes the hard way. And then I want to kind of close out with kind of talking about the potential gained, the things that why I guess the ultimate why that I think masterminding is so important to a small business, right? You're going to gain new understanding of your business. You're going to have a sense of belonging, and you're also going to have a lot of accountability. And that's all, in my opinion, through the power of a mastermind program. So, does that sound like a good plan? It's rhetorical, so because that's the plan and that's what we're going to do. But before I get into starting kind of the myth busting, so to speak, and then shining a light on the pitfalls so we can avoid them, I do have a hard question for you, especially those of you that are live listeners. But even if you're not, right, even if you're watching the replay, I want to hear or see the comments. If you're reaching out or catching this through the podcast side of things, I'd love for you to reach out to me at consultaaron.com. That's an easy way to direct message me through an app called Volley. And so I guess my question for you, and again, I know this is going to be a little bit of a hard question. I need you to kind of do a little soul searching here, but what is stopping you from masterminding? Right. And so this is not to promote what our success group has got going on, but we are accepting applications for Masters of Success as we speak. If you go over to oursuccessgroup.com/MOS, right? But the applications are not flooding in. And again, this is not about that, but I really want you to kind of do a little soul searching and ask yourself, what's stopping you from masterminding? Now, I've uncovered a few potential stories here. So I'm going to just throw some things out there and see what you think. Right. So the first thing I thought of is like, well, maybe I'm just really mean and scary. And, right. I don't know. I don't always look directly into the camera. Sometimes as I think, I look around a little bit and do stuff like that. I don't always smile as I speak, right? I get into something and I look almost serious and can get a little monotone. So I don't know, maybe that's part of it. Right. So there was one story. Another story is that you can't afford it. All right. And I certainly understand that inflation is real and things are more expensive. And, but I'm going to pop this link into the chat here for those of you that are listening to the podcast version. If you go to decorators.inc, Lenny says, you scary, not a chance. Hey, I don't know. You never know. You have to ask, right? You got to ask for feedback. and it's okay if you think that is true, but I appreciate that. It definitely was supposed to be in joke. I try not to be scary, but the back to the can't afford it part. So I just popped a link into the chat for those of you listening to the podcast version. You just go to decorators.inc/cable bill, and the amount for at least the Masters of Success, I know programs vary across the board. It's about 60 to 70% less per month than the average cable bill. Right. And so ultimately, when we think about things like, are you more serious about watching TV than you are about your business? Right. I know that for a fact, this is what I learned from my CPA dad or other accountant or money people that I've been around, that you can easily determine somebody's true priorities and not just the priorities that they give lip service to, right? I really want to be a business owner. Okay, but are they actually doing the things? Are they actually taking the action? And one of the real good indicators is the amount of money that you spend on things, right? And so if you're, they say in that article, if you go to decorators.inc, they say in that article that an average cable bill is about $215, right? So if you think about that, what could you invest that money into education, into growth, into learning, right? As opposed to just consuming. So that's the second one. The third story that I uncovered is maybe the fear that you wouldn't be accepted, right? That, group environments aren't really for you. And And I'll say this, what's really blown me away about every mastermind experience I've been involved with is kind of this almost magical, it seems in a way. It almost feels like that, right? It's got that kind of like ooh, magical feel to it, but it's this ability for groups to kind of rise together to support each other. I've been involved in very diverse groups, and it's just incredible to see how people come together when the intention is a mastermind, right? And I'm not going to say that I have not left mastermind groups, right? They were ultimately not right for me, and that's okay. um the, the You've got to, sometimes they just kind of come to pass and it's time to move on, and that's okay, right? Yes, we've had people leave the Masters of Success, and that's also okay. Again, sometimes it's just ready to move on. You got to get a different perspective, you got to get a new look, and that's totally fine. But the power of a mastermind is available to everyone. And one of my main ways that I fulfill my mission, or kind of reason for being on this earth, in my opinion, what's come up for me is that I want to foster people through masterminding, right? So at the very least, if you feel like you would not be accepted or you can't find the home, I will. I've got some notes that I want to make sure that I hit all these key points. So I put will in all caps. So I'm not going to yell at you, but I will find a place for you if you are serious about committing. Right. And so that's another story that we tell ourselves, in fear that we're not going to be accepted. Um, like Kylene, here, this is kind of along the same lines of what Kylene shared in the comments here. She said, the fear my business wasn't big enough to be part of the Masters of Success. I could have not been more wrong. Love the Masters of Success, right? And this fear that it's not right for you. And I think this is probably, if you get down to the core of that question, what's stopping you, right? This is probably the real reason for most. It's great to, sit in the cheap seats and be able to hold on to those excuses. But when you're faced with action, and that commitment to a mastermind group is a big action, but when you're faced with that action, it becomes real, right? Being part of a mastermind requires action. It requires you to show up on a regular basis. You are now going to be accountable to other people, and you're going to get to know them, and you're going to gain a huge amount of respect for them. And so now you're accountable to them, right? And in fact, I'd go so far as to call the groups that I've been a part of and I've seen that they also become friends, right? And so now, if you're not, holding up your end of the bargain, then you're maybe, oh, I'm not, maybe this isn't right for me. Maybe I'm not ready for the action, right? I mean, heck, I'll go so far. I told my mastermind group, the one that I have for myself personally, that, we go through a lot of challenges back and forth together, and some of them have been dealing with some big things, and I've dealt with big things, and I've said that I love them, and Kylene wasn't even jealous. So, there's that. For those of you that don't know, Kylene is my wife. So yes, accountability, Lenny. I love that. Yep. Tanya says the fear of digging deep into myself, and she says it's worth it. Right. So, anyhow, here's the deal. I'm not calling out anybody specifically. Right? I'm not got somebody in my mind and I'm going up, what's your problem kind of thing. Right. That's not what this is all about. What I'm doing is having the conversation out loud that's probably going on inside of you. Right. And the reason I know that is that's the same conversation that I had internally. It's the same conversation that I know mastermind folks have had. You've even seen it in the comments here, some of those fears playing out, but it's all good. This is the great part. It's all good. Masterminding is for everyone when you're ready. Now, it's so incredibly powerful at times that it can almost be scary, but you have to be willing to play full out, right? And that's really where you're going to gain, right? You can go, oh, well, I signed up for this mastermind program. It didn't work for me. Okay. Did you play full out, right? Did you show up? Were you open, or were you continuing to make excuses and not, do the work, right? So as I kind of mentioned earlier, the term mastermind is kind of a bit of a catchphrase these days, and people, do see others gaining real progress, right? Achievements. There we go. They see these things from others who are part of a true mastermind. And so that just means that some people are just using the word to advertise their things. And that's kind of confusing people, right? People go and say, oh, I was part of mastermind and it didn't work for me. They leave those groups, those meetings, whatever, the workshops, and they kind of wonder why they didn't get the results that they'd heard they'd get from others that had been part of a true mastermind. And so, Michelle, I love this, right? I totally love your comment. So I'm going to hang on to that and come back to it when I can really focus in on that, because I think that's such a good thing to explore real quick. And I'm not going to try to debunk it. I just want to talk about it, right? So I'm going to come back to that, Michelle. So hang tight. I don't think I'm ignoring you there. But back to this, right? So when we talk about a mastermind, I first have to preface that I've done the research. I am so passionate about this that I've done as much research as I can. And from what I can find in all the research I've been able to do, the first recorded use of the word mastermind was from a gentleman named Napoleon Hill. And this is from his 1928 book called The Law of Success. Now, the book contained a chapter kind of actually titled The Mastermind. And it was talking about the mastermind principle as kind of, and I'm going to read a quote here: the coordination of knowledge and effort of two or more people who work towards a definitive purpose in spirit and harmony, right? And so that's the first known use of the word mastermind together. The actual quote where it first showed up is, no two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind or a mastermind, right? And so that was in 1928. He would later go on to elaborate more on this idea in his more well-known book, which I reference all the time. It's called Think and Grow Rich. And in that book, he says, a mastermind is a principle through which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life, right? So he was very bullish like me on this whole idea of a mastermind. And in that 100 years since he kind of started talking about it, the concept of the mastermind has really evolved, and it's been refined, and it's been utilized by some of the most successful people in the world, even people that aren't talking about it, right? There's some very successful people that talk about it. Tony Robbins would be one. And I was fortunate enough to get to, and Oprah Winfrey was another. Sorry, by the way, I just was thinking of some of the people that I know mastermind. I also believe that Elon Musk does as well, right? So again, whoever you're looking up to as successful, they some way, shape, or form actually mastermind in a format pretty similar to what I was fortunate enough to learn from somebody who is also, I would consider, very successful, Mr. Jack Canfield, right? So this is why I'm so passionate about masterminding and getting it right, because I know the power of it when it's done correctly, right? And I don't like to see people wasting their time and energy on thinking that something is something that it's not, right? So let's start here, right? Let's again, I'm finally getting into the debunking the pitfalls, but I want to talk real quickly about what mastermind groups are not. I know that we don't want to focus on the negatives, but we need to have some clarity so we can just kind of be on the lookout, right? And let me also say this: none of these things that are happening are bad, right? I just don't want you to think that that's what a mastermind is and that's what you're going to get from it, right? I think these other things that people do are excellent and have their own place. I just don't think it's the turbocharger of success that a true mastermind program is, okay? So just making sure I'm clear, again, not trying to call out anybody. There's no judgment from me. I just want to give you the information. So it's definitely, in my mind, not a training or lecture that's got a lot of people in it, and really then just only a few people are kind of on the hot seat, as they kind of call it. So that's one thing it's not. It certainly does not have a leader or the person who kind of puts it together, who dominates the conversation and tends to want to talk down to people as like, I know it all kind of thing, right? The leader or the facilitator, I like to call them facilitators, are simply the ones who kind of coordinate and keep people together on the right track. It's kind of like the shepherd, so to speak. And um, now that leader, that facilitator might hear something in the mastermind and then reach out afterwards thinking that maybe they could provide a little extra help and support one-on-one, but it's not happening in the mastermind call, right? So that's number two. Number three of what it's not, a social hour, right? And yes, you want to get the rest of the group in your mastermind together and you want to become good friends, and you will, right? I know this because I've seen it, right? But you need to make a separate time to have that social time with them. The meetings need to have an agenda, and as the facilitator, that person's holding to that agenda as tightly as possible, right? And so those are the things that's not. And again, I not saying anything negative about any of those things. I love it, right? I love it when you go somewhere and you have an educator, you have a teacher that's going to lead you and guide you, right? I love it when there is a large group of people getting together to learn something. I think there's a lot of power in that, right? I love doing it. I love presenting at places where I get to be that leader in that moment, right? And social hours are fantastic too, right? We're humans. We need that social interaction. And even with COVID, right, we found ways through Zoom or otherwise. And so that's all great stuff. But what we really need, though, to really make this powerful, right? And so the pitfalls were just covered. Here to me are the pillars, right? These are the things that make these masterminds worth their weight in gold. And so these are ideas that I've learned, and then also some ideas that I've kind of refined through my own experiences here. So number one pillar of a really quality mastermind group is it's a group of 4 to 6 people, right? And why 4 to 6, right? And less than 4, you don't have enough, I call it brain diversity, right? Enough opportunities to get different perspectives. If it's just you and 2 other people, that's great. If it's just you and 1 other person, that's great. You certainly are going to get value out of that. But for some reason, that magic number of 4, that having that 3 different people giving you feedback along with the facilitator, right, is just somehow, again, magical, right? I don't mean to be getting all kind of like, oh, but it's got this effect to it, right? And then more than 6, those meetings, those calls would be really way too long to get everybody involved and to have everybody have a mastermind segment. And you need to have each person have enough time that they get the value out of the investment of time that they're making, right? So again, a few people in the hot seat, as I've heard people call it, right? Oh, this big training, and hey, Aaron, come on up. It's time for you to tell us what you're doing in your business, right? That's the hot seat, right? It doesn't make a mastermind. Again, that can be very powerful and it can bring some accountability to you, but it's not going to turbocharge you and your business like a mastermind would. So that's the number one pillar. It's a group of 4 to 6 people. Number 2 is I think the meetings need to take place every 2 weeks. Now, here's where I vary a little bit from time to time, right? This is kind of where some people might think differently, but I'm pretty staunch about this, is that it should take place every 2 weeks, right? And here's my reasoning why, right? I know some mastermind groups that meet weekly, and that to me feels like, again, we're trying to kind of help everybody rise up, right? That seems like a pretty big time commitment. And what I think happens is then you don't have enough time to really implement all of the ideas and all of the new perspectives that show up during the mastermind. And because of that fact, you end up kind of creating problems because you want to have something to talk about in the mastermind each week, but you really haven't had time to really implement the things that were brought up the last time. So again, then we start going, oh, I have to create a problem. Like, no, don't create problems. We're here to solve problems, right? We want you to have things that just show up, right? So what ends up happening is if you do have it every other week, right, then that's perfect. Now, if you go more than 2 weeks, so here's the other side of that, right, is then a lot of times if it's, once a month, I see some of the members run out of steam, right? They get there, they're really excited to kind of go back and implement the new ideas, the new learnings, the new thoughts that they got from their mastermind. And they kind of dive right into that with a lot of exuberance in that first week, right? And then in the second week, right, they're still going, but things start to slow down a little bit because new challenges are going to start to arise. And by the end of that second week, they're at a place where they're kind of ready to get filled back up again, right? Because beyond that, then they start losing momentum. And once you lose momentum, it's hard to get back into action again. So I find that 2 weeks is the ideal time frame to kind of keep that momentum rolling, get excited about implementing, find the new challenges, and be ready to kind of come back and hit that reset button or get that fuel up again, right? It's like coming into the pits for your fuel up, right? And so that's the second thing, is I think it should take place every 2 weeks. The third pillar is that all the members of the group are committed to the group, they're committed to their businesses, and they're committed to themselves, right? So that means they try to be on all the calls, and if they miss a call, they explain to the group why, and again, without judgment. I think this is a big part of it. I kind of left that out of all this, but I hope that is implied in the way that I'm sharing these things. But they try to explain, why, and then they commit to kind of reaching new goals, right? Sometimes it's just committing to show up again, right? And so they commit to not judging themselves, right? And others in the group, as I just mentioned, and they kind of hold an abundance mentality, and they hold the conversations of the group as very private and not to be shared, right? So it's that level of commitment too is the third pillar. And to just, pay money and show up at something, you don't always have that commitment, right? There's that expectation that I'm there to take, right? The commitment to this is that you're there to be open, you're there to give. And through that power of giving, you're actually going to get more than you realize, right? And in fact, you're probably going to get more than you give without even realizing it, right? So that's number 3. Number 4, that the number 4 pillar is it has a very specific agenda, right? And each group can kind of tune theirs a little bit based on the specific needs, right? What the demographic, what the ultimate goals of the group are. But it needs to still stay in kind of a specific format or framework in my mind, right? And so here they are. There's about 6 kind of steps to it, or kind of guardrails, so to speak. And I'm going to share them with you guys again, so you can go out and get started right away if you want to. So first, I believe it needs to have some sort of an opening inspiration, right? We need to have that marker for our brains, for ourselves, to kind of get set and go, okay, I'm here to mastermind. I'm ready. I'm open. I'm inspired, right? Some groups might do that with a prayer. Some groups might do that with an invocation. I know for the Masters of Success group, each of the members will at different times find little short videos, 3 to 4 minute inspirational videos, right? Some of them are the, get to bleeping work, and some of them are, you're awesome, right? And it's just whatever shows up for that member. And it's always so incredible to me when we do that. The people that brought it, obviously there was a reason for that for them, but the rest of the group goes, man, I really needed that right then. Wow. Right. So that's number 1, opening inspiration. Number 2 is you need to check in, right? You just kind of need to see where everybody's at and get a feel. That way we know, can have some understanding of what we're going to be discussing. But it's just more of like, where are you at? How's it going? And real importantly in there, we talk about one new and good thing, right? So again, getting our minds in the right place. And then in that check-in or in that segment, you also want to review the previous meeting's commitments, right? What did each member commit to? And then how did they do it? This is not an opportunity to, oh, woe was me, I didn't get the thing done, right? It's not oh, you're so bad, Aaron, you didn't get your stuff done. It's here's what I learned, right? Did I reach my goals? If not, what did I learn? How can I adjust next time? How can I adjust this next commitment? Was it too big? Was it too small? What showed up for me, right? Maybe life happened and that's okay, but what learning experiences are in that? So that's number 2. Number 3, is you getting into the specific mastermind. And this is, to me, really the important part. It's done where each participant gets a set amount of time And in that set amount of time, they share and get feedback, right? And I encourage members of the group that I'm a part of that everybody shares some feedback, even if they don't really have expertise or a true understanding of that, because the beginner's mindset is sometimes super, super powerful. In fact, a lot of times it's more powerful. Many of the things that we're challenged with are not the things that we don't know. It's the things that we do know that are holding us back, or the things that we do believe that are holding us back, right? So having that beginner's mindset perspective is also really valuable. So it's very specific, a set amount of time to share and then get feedback. And this is the part where the facilitator really has to kind of have an understanding, right? You can't just go, up, time's up, clock, right? I know some facilitators that do that. I don't believe that's the way to do it. You've got to be able to kind of read the room, so to speak, right? And looking at that. So that's the third part. The fourth part is after the masterminding, right? Everybody's pretty pumped up. They got lots of new ideas. So what are you going to do with those ideas? It's time to set goals. And what we always look at is we want them to be stretch goals. We want them to be very specific. Again, a trained facilitator is going to help make these goals more powerful. And really, it also gets more powerful as the group gets to know each other even more, right? So we have, with the Masters of Success, we have a minimum commitment of 3 months. It's going to be 6 calls, right? Because I know that until you kind of get that first 3 months under your belt, you won't quite see the momentum quite yet, right? So that's number 4 is that goal setting. Number 5 is you kind of close with gratitude, right? Gratitude for the group, gratitude for things around you. Just leave that meeting with this. Again, we need to get out there with enthusiasm, ready to take action. And then this isn't necessarily like a part of the meeting agenda per se, but it's also fairly important to close on time as best you can. Again, there's some reading of the room. There's some, kind of like checking in, going, hey, I know we're going to go a little bit long here. Is everybody okay with that? Right. Because sometimes you need that little extra bit, right? Maybe somebody's got an extra challenge that you have to get through, right? I've even been part of groups where we say, you know what, if anybody needs extra time, I'm still working on the things from the last call. I'm willing to give it, right? We don't really do that in Masters of Success, but again, we want to close on time as best we can, because the value of the time that you're investing is also really important. And so if it just drags out, then right. And so then you kind of close the meeting. Now you can stick around, have a little bit of a social hour at that point, right? But don't make it mandatory. Right. And what we do with Masters of Success is we're going to host a few extra meetings throughout the year, and we're going to do some fun stuff, right? We're going to get to know each other better. We're going to, and really, especially, we have 2 groups and they meet separately, but they work together with each other in the day-to-day. We actually have a private volley space that they work together in. So yes, you need to have that. But again, that last pillar is just close on time as best you can. So, all right. Now, before I get into the last part here, I do want to go back to my earlier question. And again, some of you guys have put some stuff in here, so I'm going to go to those first, but I want anybody else that wants to join in here on the conversation that's in the live version here today, is I want to go back to that earlier question and what is stopping you from finding and committing to a mastermind, right? So, let's Michelle, I want to get to yours here, but I'm going to get to Jerry's too. Well, let me hit Tanya's real quick. I become so much more aware of what I'm actually doing by participating and evaluating what went wrong or what went right. I love that, Tanya. That's such a great, I got it. That's worth a round of applause. I like it. All right. And then I look forward to every call. I love our mastermind group. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Jerry says, meeting times can be a roadblock, but I'm very close to having an open schedule. Not sure if I'm just making an excuse for myself. And Jerry, here's what I'll say. If you are making an excuse for yourself, that's perfectly fine, right? We've got to, just starting by saying that, going, I don't know. Am I making an excuse for myself? Yeah, the meeting time. I know you've got a full-time day job that keeps you pretty busy. I also know, like you said, your schedule might be opening up pretty soon. I think that's if I recall, coming very soon. So within the next month, I would think, if I remember right, at least a month and a half. But and that's okay, right? So when the time's right, it's going to call you. But that also, it becomes a time that, yeah, you're committed to that business. And so I think the power will be so great for you because you took that opportunity to say, am I making an excuse? It's okay if I am right now. What do I need to get over that? Okay, well, let me think about that, right? Let me work on that. Let me um, stew on that, right? Let me dig into the root of that. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Jerry. That's awesome. And this comment that you had earlier, Michelle, I totally love this. And I love it because it's honest, and I love it because um, you're not alone. Right. So Michelle says, I struggle in groups, sometimes hard to give my input. I get overwhelmed, have a fear of digging into myself like Tanya. Absolutely. And so, Michelle, again, my intention here is I'm not trying to like debunk this and prove you wrong or whatever. Right. I totally understand all that. Here's what I would say. Right. The great part that I've learned about mastermind groups is that, again, the when you get people together that are committed, that are success minded, you will be so blown away by how many things you thought were going to be true are not. Right. And hard to give my input. Okay. I totally get that. Right. I like, oh, I get tongue tied. Right. Heck, I do this every Saturday. I'm that kind of thing. Right. Do I love that about myself? No, not at all. That's why I get notes and I try to follow them. Right. But the reality is, whatever you show up with is going to be exactly what they need. Right? And it's incredible how it happens. I don't know. I can't explain it. Right. It's a little deeper than my current understanding of things, but that whatever you show up with, I've found that more often than not, that the thing that takes me to that next level, gets me beyond that roadblock in my own personal mastermind groups, does come from the person that says, "Oh, I have really no experience in this at all. Did you think of this?" Right? Or this is what showed up for me. Right? I use that a ton. Like, I just go, you know what? This is what showed up for me. And you can take it for whatever it's worth. And if it's valuable to you, awesome. If it's not, thank you for listening. Right. And so, and then, getting overwhelmed, right? Here's the other side of it. We're only going to go as deep as we're ready to go. And our mastermind might give us a little bit of a gentle nudge, but especially with a good facilitator, I've never seen a mastermind get to a point where somebody's just completely overwhelmed and shuts down. Right. I've seen people have breakthroughs that they just need to let it all go. And I've seen, I just thinking about some of those moments are actually making me a little bit emotional right now. Sorry about that. Wow. That came out of nowhere, but it's I'm overwhelmed. You are exactly going to be where you're at. Again, this is not a sales pitch. This is not to say you should go join the mastermind right away. I'm just saying, I love that you have these thoughts and I love that you're willing to share them. I wanted to give you some alternate perspectives. So hopefully that is helpful and useful for you there, Michelle. Thank you. You guys, awesome. Thank you so much for commenting and participating. Kylene says, I was there too, thinking that what I had to share isn't going to be enough or would not express correctly. So I became overwhelmed and fearful. But hearing insight from different perspectives has been huge and extremely beneficial. Yeah, I mean, the Masters of Success is a great example of this. We have people in all different places and levels, and they work together in such amazing ways and growth. So it's been pretty fun to watch. Okay. So I want to kind of, I know we've already gone 40 minutes and I want to kind of start to wind this down a little bit, but again, don't let me stop you. If you've got comments, you got questions, you got thoughts you want to put in there. Lenny says, you are who you surround yourself with. I mean, I can't tell you a better way to be more intentional about surrounding yourself with success-minded people, right? That people are there, they're committed, right? It's pretty darn awesome though. Thanks for sharing that, Lenny. All right. So I hope I've given you a pretty good understanding of how to master masterminds. And so I just want to close here and kind of, again, start to wind down with some of the powerful benefits of why they work. Is number one. Sorry. I'm getting sidetracked. Shiny objects, Aaron. Here we go. I love your guys' comments. So that's the shiny object. Michelle says, thank you, Aaron. Probably what I need as my word this year is a line. That's awesome. Chuck says, great question today. Thank you, Aaron. You're very welcome, Chuck. Okay. So I want to go back. I want to get back on track here. Here are some of, in my mind's kind of the real benefits, right? And I've already mentioned these a little bit, but I want to clarify. I want to go a little deeper on these benefits. Number one, I think you're going to have a better understanding of your business, right? And I just don't think that you can't, right? If you're willing to play full out, if you're willing to kind of show up and share and right. I've actually had people in the Masters of Success tell me that it's like having their very own business advisory board, right? Having more smart people thinking about your business, no matter what, is going to give you insight that you can't get any other way, right? And as we've already talked about, that beginner's mindset, sometimes those answers are what you actually need. I've found tons of great advice in that moment, right? Or from, right? Because we get too close to it. We're too close to the challenge and we can't see it. So you're going to have a better understanding, right? Because outside of yourself, maybe your business partners, your significant others, maybe even some key employees, no one else is going to know as much about your business as your mastermind does, right? No Facebook group keyboard warriors is going to be able to give you any details or opinions that you are going to, that's going to be better than what you can get from a mastermind, right? A mastermind is that depth that we really need, right? I think what happens to people is they want to go it alone. They want to, I'm just going to go to the Facebook groups. I'm going to watch YouTube videos, but all that stuff is so surface level, right? Because I can tell you all sorts of great information, but until you understand how you can implement that into your business, it will never be useful to you, right? And so working on implementing that into your business. And there's no more powerful way to figure out how to implement that into your business than with a group of people that care as much about your business as you do, right? It's this rising tide that lifts all boats really comes to life in a mastermind, right? So that's number one. You get this amazing understanding of your business, which then brings more clarity and confidence. Number two is you're going to have a sense of belonging, right? No matter how many people you have around your business, employees, customers, blah, 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 all of those things, there will be times when you feel alone. I am super blessed. I have a wonderful support person. I have a wonderful partner in life and in business in my wife, Kylene. But there are, and she's going to be fine, but she's going to hate that. There are days that I still feel alone, and that's okay, right? That's not her responsibility. I just feel alone because I need that different perspective. So reaching out to my mastermind and getting support from them has answered a lot of those questions, has been that kind of like, I'm not alone, right? There's, and again, my wife serves exactly her purpose and it's perfect in every way, but a mastermind just gives you this sense of belonging that's even greater, right? And I've even seen it, even if people in the mastermind groups are technically competitors, but I'm using air quotes for the podcast folks out there. A true committed mastermind group is all about that thing I just mentioned, that rising tide lifting all boats. And so when that's the case, right, then you feel like you're maybe out in that choppy, crazy ocean, not alone, but with a fleet of other ships that are working to help each other. Right. So you get that sense of belonging. And then here's the real rubber meeting the road, so to speak, right? You've got accountability, right? The first two things that I've shared, right? They're nice and kind, it's that understanding and belonging. That's awesome, right? But this one can be a little rough to swallow. This can be really hard to do on our own. And it's about getting a little bit uncomfortable, right? And it's not about just like jumping in and going, okay, I'm going to, I have this massive fear of snakes. I'm going to go sit in a snake pit. No, right? This is not what it's all about. This is about stretching your current comfort zones, right? Your current limits. It's just stretching it a little bit. It's about being accountable though. It's about doing the things you say you're going to do. And this is not for someone else, but for your own success, right? The mastermind group kind of puts that pressure on you to stretch yourself a little bit in front of other success-minded people. And then you've got to deliver on those promises, right? Now, you know that you're going to have the support from the group and the facilitators. And so it's not about like, if I don't deliver, I'm a terrible person. It's about, I got to deliver, but I know I've got the support just in case I stumble, just in case I fall a little bit, right? And so, there's becomes, you're able to kind of remove some of those excuses and start doing the things that you said you were going to do, right? And this doesn't mean, again, that we're not going to reach our stretch goals from time to time, right? For example, in my personal mastermind group that I'm a part of, that I've talked about quite a bit here, I'm not the facilitator of that, but I'm a part of that, right? And so in our group, we actually are all experienced mastermind facilitators. So we kind of take turns facilitating. But I was struggling, right? I was really struggling to get my stretch goals done. There was a block, right? And I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I was in it deep, right? In fact, so close to it, there was no light left in that tunnel. And what ended up happening is my group helped me see a new perspective about the block that I couldn't find. And I was able to kind of then refocus and say, okay, I got to deal with that block first, right? And so I had that accountability on top of all of those other parts, the belonging and the encouragement and right, the understanding that you're gaining from your business. You get all that, and that's the turbocharger, right? Because the format that I talked about, right, the understanding that you get into your business, the new perspectives, the confidence, knowing that you have a support team around you, the fact that you belong to a group of success-minded people, that's all amazing. Right? That's all incredible. But the accountability, that's the thing that moves things forward, right? That to me is the turbocharger that generates the momentum, because the momentum is going to come from action, and that action is going to come from committing to reaching goals. So I guess one last time, what is stopping you from finding and committing to a mastermind group right now? Right? What's stopping you? And if there's something stopping you, that's okay, right? I'm not saying there shouldn't be something stopping you. I'm saying go in and ask yourself that question and really ask yourself that question, right? And again, I want to make sure I'm really clear. Today is not about saying, masters of success, blah, blah, blah. That's not what it's about, right? I wanted to be very clear about that, because this is about the power of a mastermind in general. Master of success is not for everybody, right? But I wanted you to have the details that most people could, and I don't know, maybe should, I don't, it's hard to say, right? You can go out and start your own if you really wanted to. And yes, there is a bit more to it than I can shove into the, 49 minutes that we've been talking so far. But for the most part, you have the details. You can kind of create that for yourself, right? The pillars of what makes a great mastermind group and those pitfalls to avoid. And so I'm happy to talk to anyone about masterminding at any time. As you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate about it. And that can be Masters of Success or otherwise, right? So again, just reach out to me. The best way to reach me is on Volley. It's at consultaaron.com. I can put a banner up if you guys need. I can put the link in there if you guys need, or just ask me. But just consultaaron.com. That takes you to a little messaging app. And so I guess before I go, and if you guys have anything else with that is also what I want to talk about here. But I think you've sensed the passion, right? Masters of Success is definitely the thing I'm most proud of in our success group. And I feel like there's a lot of things to be proud of beyond that, right? Todd and I building the 5 Keys program and just a lot of the things that we've been able to do and be a part of, and lots of things to be proud of. But the Masters of Success is the thing I'm definitely most proud of. And I also know that to be able to make the impact I believe I was kind of put on this earth to make, I can't personally run enough well-facilitated mastermind groups by myself. So I've kind of taken this knowledge that I've gained and the format and the resources that our success group has built. And I've taken that, right? And I'm searching for people who, I guess for lack of a better way of saying it, I'm searching for people that want to have their own group, that want to facilitate their own group. Now, typically this would be people that are Facebook group admins or people that have a community that is wanting a little bit more, or maybe there's specific organizations. But honestly, it can be anybody that wants to bring 4 to 6 people together and facilitate growth through the power of the mastermind. Now, so I built this program. I'm calling it the MOS Plus. And the facilitator just has to round up the group, and then they have to get them to sign up, right? Our success group, myself, we're going to get them to agree and make the commitment to the terms. We're going to handle all the back end work. The facilitator is going to get training on all of the details I discussed today and more. They're going to have templates. They're going to have a system to host the meetings online, and those meetings are going to be recorded. They're going to be a password accessible online location for the meetings. And, those are just some of the resources. And the other cool part is the facilitator gets a 35% affiliate compensation for each member in the group, right? So it doesn't cost the facilitator anything to offer this out to their community. They just have to share and round up a group, right? So if that happens to be you, or if you're part of a community that needs this, please go or send them, right? Either way, the link is mosmasterminds.com. I will put it into the chat here for those that are tuned in live, so you can just click on it, but that's mosmasterminds.com. And from that page, you can get some more details, but then you can schedule a call with me to kind of discuss the details and get the ball rolling, right? So that's what I've got. I see a couple other comments that I want to get to. These are awesome. Michelle says, after listening to this, I would say finances are holding me back. Michelle, let's talk about that, right? If you do think that this is something for you and that you'd like to kind of take a look at this, I'd love to talk with you more about that and just figure it out. You're already an OSG member, so the mastermind group is actually kind of an add-on, and it's not that much further away than what you're already paying for our success group membership. So that's one thing. Second thing is, again, my goals have nothing to do with I have to make X amount of dollars doing this. And my goals are how many people can I facilitate through this, and therefore that makes me very open to working things out, right? To being flexible, right? I'm always going to be fair to everybody involved, right? I'm not going to give special favors or anything like that in a, right, that I wouldn't give to anybody else, right? But at the same time, I want to be very flexible, because I do believe in the power of this. And if my reason is to empower proactive small business owners to develop a winning mindset with resources to nurture essential fundamentals so that they unlock their full potential, then supporting people to find a mastermind program is a big part of that. So thank you for sharing that, Michelle. Jerry says, today I learned much more than I knew about mastermind groups. I had felt that it was something I should have already known. I would politely disagree with that, Jerry. I don't think you should have, right? I think that's one of the challenges, right? Is that the term gets thrown out a lot because it is kind of sexy and fun, right? Mastermind, woo. But when you're ready for it, you're ready for it, right? It took me a long time. And so I guess if I were to agree with you that it's something that you should have known already, then I'd look back on my first 45 years of life and go, what was I doing? Right. And I don't think that's true. So, but I'm glad that you learned a whole lot more, Jerry. And I appreciate you saying that. And spelling, right? We get it. Hooked on phonics. That's all we need to do. All right. So that's what I got for you guys. As I said, I thought it'd be a little bit long. We're getting up onto the hour mark here, so I don't want to take away any more of your guys' day. Hopefully that's given you a lot of good information to kind of digest. And so I think with that, I'm going to call it a day. And if you guys have other questions, comments, feel free to reach out to me at consultaaron.com or any other way that you want to find me. I'm happy to try to have that conversation and go from there. So excited to hear about you guys mastering masterminds. All of you that are part of the Masters of Success group, thank you so much. I love and appreciate you with all my heart, and everybody else that's working on their business and really trying to go right. That's a proactive small business owner interested in a winning mindset. I love and appreciate you guys as well. So I want to hear how mastermind programs help you once you're ready to dive into that, if you're not already involved. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you very soon.